Yesterday, we saw closing statements in the Derek Chauvin trial in Minnesota. This is the trial of the police officer who killed George Floyd in the case that last summer catalyzed nationwide protests. We may soon know the verdict, but in the meantime, it's even conceivable by the time we publish this clip, we will know the verdict, although it doesn't seem to be moving quite so quickly. But in the meantime, what we know for sure is that Derek Chauvin's lawyer, Eric Nelson, gave a completely deranged and delusional closing statement that in a sense actually felt Trumpian. In the way that Trump pushed the presidency to new lows, Eric Nelson pushed legal defense to new lows with this ridiculous closing statement. Here is Eric Nelson saying that there are elements of criminal trials that are like chocolate chip cookies. Yes, take a look.
A criminal case is kind of like baking chocolate chip cookies. You have to have the necessary ingredients. You've got to have flour and sugar and butter and chocolate chips and whatever else goes into those chocolate chip cookies. If you have all of the ingredients, you can make chocolate chip cookies. But if you're missing any one single ingredient, you can't make chocolate chip cookies. It's a simple kind of analogy. But the criminal law works the same way. We say, we call the ingredients the elements. The state has the burden of proving each and every element beyond a reasonable doubt.
Not only is it bizarre, it's also wrong. Like, you can make chocolate chip cookies often without any one ingredient. You might think, well, I definitely need flour. No, you can use flour alternatives. Well, okay, but I need eggs. No, you can use applesauce as an emulsifier instead of eggs. Okay, but butter I definitely need. No, you can replace butter with any number of lubricating elements, oils of different kinds. It's just a very dumb analogy. But sadly, it may be one that is fine-tuned to what Eric Nelson perceives to be the level of the jury. We just don't know. That's the scary part. This may actually work. I've talked before about my jury duty experience on an assault case. And the most infuriating part was nobody, I don't want to say nobody, almost no one in the jury room even understood what it was we were adjudicating. It was a question of, was a physical altercation self-defense by the accused? And by self-defense, we don't mean, backyard bar rules of what constitutes self-defense. We were supposed to adjudicate this case on the basis of the judge's instructions as to what legally self-defense is. Did it meet the required legal elements for self-defense? And the conversation in the jury room among everybody other than myself and one other juror was a colloquial discussion of, no, come on, this was self-defense. Well, but hold on a second. At the time I lived in Massachusetts, what is Massachusetts law about a right to retreat? Anyway, the point was, on something that simple, 2/3 of the jurors didn't even understand the law meant to be adjudicated. I'm not hugely optimistic about any particular jury. I know nothing about the Derek Chauvin case jury, but based on my experience, I'm skeptical. Here's another portion of the closing where Eric Nelson says, if you were talking, you were breathing. Therefore, since George Floyd was saying I can't breathe, it means his breathing is fine, which has already been debunked by Dr. Martin Tobin, a pulmonologist who testified during the case. Take a look.
It's true. If you are talking, you are breathing. It doesn't mean effectively. And Dr. Tobin described how even medical doctors have problems sometimes assessing the legitimacy of a patient's needs relevant to their respiratory processes because they're saying, I can't breathe. And some doctors confuse it for just anxiety or this or that. So if medical doctors make these mistakes, Dr. Tobin told you it provides a false sense of security, right? Lieutenant Mercil told you that that is what is said among police officers. He's the trainer. So how many times do we hear an officer say, based on his training and experience, if you can breathe, you can talk. If you can talk, you can breathe. Excuse me.
And then Nelson goes directly from this into the claim that very often people in custody will fake a medical emergency to avoid going to prison. Now, this seems particularly bogus since George Floyd really did die. Is the argument that because other people have faked medical emergencies, Derek Chauvin did nothing wrong in his handling of Floyd? I think that's what he's trying to imply, at least. Take a look at this video.
A reasonable police officer will take into consideration, again, his training, his experience, right? Lieutenant Mercil talked about, and many people talked about, many of the officers talked about how it is not uncommon for suspects to feign or pretend to have a medical emergency to avoid being arrested. Unfortunately, that is the reality. Nobody likes to get arrested, and reasonable police officers know that.
You know, these hypotheticals for me aren't doing much, but it's possible that they're doing something for the jury. We just don't know yet. And then lastly, here's Derek Chauvin's attorney, Eric Nelson, saying, listen, Derek Chauvin could have kicked George Floyd. He could have punched George Floyd. He could have elbowed George Floyd, but he didn't. Almost like the argument is he deserves an award because he didn't kill and elbow George Floyd. He merely killed him. And I guess that's to be looked up to. Take a look.
Officer Chauvin made a decision not to use higher levels of force when he would have been authorized to do that, including punches, kicks, elbows, right? All of these tools were available to Officer Chauvin. That is not an intent to purposefully use unlawful force.
All right. And then actually, the very last one. Here is Eric Nelson saying, listen, George Floyd being put face down, that can't be a problem because people do really nice things face down. Sometimes people sleep face down. Sometimes people suntan face down. So therefore, being face down can't possibly be part of this case.
We've heard a lot about the prone position. Consider just the basic prone position. People sleep in the prone position. People suntan in the prone position. People get massages in the prone position. The prone position in and of itself is not an inherently dangerous act. It is not an inherently dangerous act.
So this is the idea, and this is a common legal strategy. Take each piece and say that's not a problem. Prone position isn't a problem by itself. Knee to the neck isn't a problem by itself. Plus, you know, Derek Chauvin didn't punch George Floyd. He didn't elbow George Floyd. But the point is, altogether, it is a big deal. Everything together killed George Floyd, period. And that is what is ultimately being adjudicated here. I really couldn't tell you how this is going to end up. We're left to wait. There is tension in Minnesota in advance of the verdict, concerns about unrest. And to be clear, Derek Chauvin is innocent until proven guilty. Don't send me the voicemails about, oh, David, you're looking to hang this guy. First of all, I'm against the death penalty. I'm not looking to hang anybody. And of course, Derek Chauvin is innocent until proven guilty. He deserves competent defense counsel like everyone else, full stop. There's no qualifier. The closing statement just happens to be nonsense, but that doesn't mean it will not work. Maybe Eric Nelson is a moron, but maybe Eric Nelson accurately has assessed what will appeal to this jury. And that may be the chocolate chip cookie analogy. We will know when we get the verdict. Let me know what you expect. You can find me on Twitter at @Pakman. One of our sponsors today is Sheath Underwear. The weather is warming up, and as many of us know, that can be associated with sticking, rubbing, chafing with traditional underwear. Sheath Underwear creates boxer briefs that solve it all. Sheath Underwear was developed by a U.S. soldier who spent time deployed in the desert. He was looking for a way to be more comfortable, and he designed something that's great even just for everyday use. Sheath boxer briefs have multiple ergonomic compartments in front to prevent skin-on-skin contact, keeping everything separate, cool, dry, and comfortable. So Sheath Underwear will prevent the sweatiness and the chafing and the readjusting. And Sheath Underwear is giving the David Pakman Show audience 20% off when you go to sheathunderwear.com/Pakman and use the promo code Pakman. My experience with Sheath Underwear has been great. Yours will be as well if you give it a try. The link is right underneath this video. Don't forget to use that promo code Pakman for 20% off.